Hey guys! Alright, so I'm gonna do a digital piece today, but I just thought I'd show you the sketch that I did initially for it. So that's the sketch that I've done, and I really liked the angle and the lighting of the face. So I thought I'd turn it into a digital piece, and I also did another drawing of this little bugger, and I thought I'd incorporate those two together. So let's see how it goes. So this is gonna be a long one. It took me so long to paint this. So hang tight, get a tea, chill out with me. You'll be with me for a good 20 minutes, I think. So with this digital piece, normally I have a big to-do list of artworks that I've got to make, and this piece kind of came about as kind of procrastination for me. Like, I have so much other stuff that I need to be working on, but my art practice is all about control for me, and I'm only dependent on myself with my own art career. So when it comes to like working and doing a lot of like commissions and other big projects that I'm working on, it makes me feel really out of control in my own art career. So I have to do personal work to feel connected to myself, otherwise I feel like I just don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I don't know, my own personal work means a lot to me, so it was really important to me to do this piece. It took longer than I wanted it to, and it took up my whole week, and I have so much other stuff that I need to work on, but anyway, oops. Yeah, so when it comes to oh my god. Okay, so first of all, it's peak hour traffic at the moment, so apologies for if you hear any cars in the background. If it gets completely intolerable, I'm gonna stop. But, I live right next to a highway, so it's like, you hear it no matter what. So apologies for that. So with this digital piece, it's, it's kind of hard recording digital work for me personally, because I find I'm not the best instinctively when it comes to painting digitally. I think it's really difficult for me when it's it might be the tools that I'm working with, but it's really uninstinctive and kind of clunky. I find I can't get that much accuracy when it comes to line work. I think I can't do much line work for sure when it comes to Photoshop, but I do find like painting can be quite easy. But you'll see I do struggle right here with getting like perfect lines. Although I did come to the conclusion when things are really perfect, when you paint them, they look unrealistic. So I'm trying, and also with my older work, I use a much softer brush, so everything comes out a little too perfect and kind of reflects like the uncanny valley, it looks like a little bit too clean. So here I'm trying to create quite a lot of texture in my work and using a harder brush, so I do get like a little bit more cross-hatching with it and a little bit more dimension, I would say. So it takes me a few goes when it comes to the eye and the placement. I purposely made the eye on the right side a little bit bigger, and you can see the pupil is a bit bigger than the left side. I think it really enhances that alien quality in the piece that I was trying to get. And she looks kind of, it's really subtle when you look at the final piece, but it almost makes her look a bit freakier when her other eye is bigger. You can see right here it's a lot bigger, but I quite like it. It looks a little bit more monstrous. So I usually like to start off with the nose when I'm painting a portrait. Noses are my favorite. I think they're really cute, and the way light hits a nose is just really satisfying to paint, and the nostrils and the angles of it, I don't know, there's something about noses that really are fun for me. I wanted to paint her nose pink or like an orangey red, I just really like that aesthetic, and I think it's really cute. I like how she turned out quite threatening, but also really, really cute as well. So I think I decided to go with like a navy blue eyes. I think because I tend to do that when it comes to portraits. I like to mix up the pupils, and I don't know, it's like a little bit weirder, you know, a little bit more interesting when the character isn't perfect, you know, she's got flaws, and it looks more realistic in that way. Oh, so here I had a little bit of a problem with the mushrooms coming out of her face. How silly does that sound? The mushrooms coming out of her face. The angle of them wasn't right. I think this with all my newer work, I'm trying to get all the angles perfect in my pieces. I think there's a lot of like form that's incorrect with my pieces. I mean, I know how to paint, but when it comes to form, I think I have got a long way to go. So happy I picked up on that, actually, because I was like, it's from a lower angle, so the mushrooms don't go in that angle, obviously. Like if they went in the angle that I had them painted, you'd be looking down, whereas the angle is looking up towards the character. So this tattoo on her chin drove me nuts. I really liked how it felt like what's his name? The character from all the Saw films. I don't know what his name is, but I liked how sinister that made her look. The only problem is when it came to the tattoos, getting the angles correct was really difficult, so I think I gave up on the circle on her chin and drew something else. So I normally bounce around a painting when I'm working on it. You know, I'll work on one eye and then on a bit of hair. As you've probably noticed, I do like to bounce around quite a bit, or I like to get midway through like the whole piece almost, or the whole face, and then I'll focus on a feature. So yeah, you can see here, I just gave up. I was like, screw this, I'm just gonna delete that bit. That's just terrible. So I felt like this tattoo was maybe a little bit more accurate to the world that she would live in. It's a bit more tribal. The other one kind of felt kind of clownish, which I still like, but it wasn't really appropriate for her face. So here I brought in the reference because I had it to the other side of my screen, but it was just really annoying me. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can just take this into Photoshop. So here I'm having a bit of trouble with how I want to what sort of style I wanted with the hair. I wanted it to feel really weightless, like you've landed on this planet and this is the first alien you see, and her hair is like weightless and floating in the atmosphere. So yeah, it was a bit tricky. I wasn't sure how realistic versus cartoony I wanted it. You know, it's I actually have that problem a lot with my work, like how realistic do I want this to go? Do I want it to be really stylized or not? So I'm still trying to figure that out when it comes to my hair. When I draw hair a lot, I'm not too sure where my style is at when it comes to that. But, you know, you've just got to discover that while you're making pieces, and sometimes they present themselves to you. So showing my references and like all of that kind of messy raw stuff is pretty new to me, to be honest. I don't often show that sort of behind the scenes stuff, so I'm kind of excited to let you guys in on that sort of world. Like, where does all this stuff come from? You know, like where's the lighting hitting on these objects and characters? I found this bug on Pinterest. Pinterest is like a wealth of images and references. For all my other fellow artists out there, get onto Pinterest, because when you need to find a bug reference, you know, I've got a whole folder of like weird animals, and then I can just look through. It's like, there it is, perfect. And also, I used to collect a lot of references and store them on my computer, and I just would never go through them. So yeah, I really recommend getting on Pinterest. It's not just for wedding photos. It can be a really good source of images. So here I just took a image from Google to just get the right colors of this sunset. I think when it comes to atmospheres and landscapes, it's not my strong point. I really want to work on my backgrounds a lot more, but I was having a bit of trouble getting the colors just right, so thought I'd bring in another image to help me out. And this little technique here, adding the little dust specks, I got from Aaron Blaise. He used to work for Disney, and I don't know, it's like a really simple trick to kind of add depth to your piece. I thought it was really effective and really stepped it up to that next level. Okay, so my favorite part, the buggo. I love this little bug in his weird trunk. I just love painting animals and bugs. I think they have so much personality. When it comes to women, I either do animals or women, and I find that it's really hard to, although I do subvert the beauty standards of a portrait of a female, it's a bit harder to add like character and personality to a woman, unlike a bug. Or, you know, animal. I think that they have a lot more leeway almost, because you can't quite remember exactly the features of a bug or animal, so your brain kind of lets you get away with it almost when it comes to how different and how much personality you can bring to it. So I had a bit of trouble with the bug when it came to like adding the texture. When it comes to Photoshop, I really haven't mastered like what brushes to use. That's still something I'm trying to figure out, and like what blending modes to use my brush settings on. So far I'm finding like a oval shaped brush that's a bit harder helps a lot, and it gives it just adds a little bit more texture to it, which is kind of essential when it comes to painting. Like I said before, when it's too perfect it looks really weird. You kind of want unevenness in your painting a lot, you know, you don't want anything to look too perfect because it just doesn't look right. I think a lot of newer artists start off doing, you know, painting a portrait, and they want the portrait to look really perfectly symmetrical, or you know, they want the skin to look totally flawless, and it's the flaws that make things so much more realistic, and it really helps push the idea of it being realistic. So this bug is kind of a mix between, I would say the limbs are kind of amphibian, and then, I don't know, it's a creature really. It's like a cross between a lizard, frog, and a bug. I don't know what kind of bug. You tell me. Also, adding the second light source from the bug was a little bit tricky, because as soon as I added it, I was like, yes, that looks awesome. Let's add a third light source. But then I realized, oh no, that means I have to add in that light source all over the place. But adding in different light sources is really helpful, and really constantly going back to several different light sources. I think, you know, here, how many light sources do I have? I've got one main sunset light source, a kind of bounce light from the terrain of the floor, and then the bug. So light source is something I'm still trying to perfect in my work. I think in this piece, I think it's the most considered piece I've done where I've really thought about where the light is coming from. I think the other pieces I've kind of just been like la-di-da, we'll just like, yeah, that seems to go there. And this piece I really, really thought about the light, and I think it shows. So I mess around with the hair quite a bit. It is really, really difficult. If I knew what sort of style I wanted to go with when it came to the hair, I feel like it would be easier for me to accomplish it. But yeah, here I'm trying really hard to kind of figure out if I want to go in that like lowish style of hair, or, you know, more realistic. And especially when it's like hair that's meant to be like floating around, it's a bit tricky. I did want the hair to feel like it was floating, because I find a lot of my older works feel really stiff, and hair really helps give the illusion that there's like, you know, movement and energy, and it's dynamic. So it was important for me to try and like get the shape of the hair to feel like it's moving like slightly, like it's almost like it's underwater, you know. I think I watched that trailer for the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and the movie looks terrible to me. Come on, like all the Pirates of the Caribbean films have been terrible for years, but Javier Bardem's hair, I really liked what they did to his hair, where it looks like he's underwater all the time. That was a really cool effect. I think the effects of that movie have gotten better, but the actual movie not so much. Another problem I have with hair is the hairline. I find I have a really difficult time finding the balance between what is skin and what is hair. I think I accomplished it okay here, but I don't know. I have a long ways to go when it comes to perfecting hair. There's just too many options when it comes to painting hair. Like, it's so malleable, and you have to like think about the dimension and the light source as well. And I really like the way Loish does her hair, where it's kind of painted like ribbons, and I tried to implement that sort of ribbony look, where I thought of the hair more as like a ribbon tube rather than thinking it was hair, because when you break down a painting or like an element that you're trying to paint and think of it as an object, it's so much easier for your mind to comprehend like, how do you render this? So that helped a little bit. It's not perfect though, but I think it's gonna be perfect for now. It's as good as it's gonna get, I think, for me when it comes to the hair. I'm still pretty happy with it. And I love this color. This like seafoam cyan blue mixed in with, you know, all the various tones is so gorgeous. It's, I think, one of my favorite colors. I don't think I could pick my favorite color, because I fall in love with color so much. It's such a big source of inspiration to me. I often start off with like a color palette and then work my way around the piece. Like, color really, really informs my work. So here I'm adding in, I remembered that damn light source that I added in, and I had to reflect that into the top of the mushrooms. Just adding in all the final touches, some bits that I forgot to add in initially, darkening and lightening up certain areas so they make a little bit more sense. And here I'm kind of just playing around with some extra elements. I was going to add in some space rocks, but I don't know, it felt a little bit overdone, you know. And I decided to just leave those two circles there and have them a bit blurry to feel like they're in the foreground. Which I think maybe it evens it out in color as well. I quite like them, and the composition too. Oh my gosh, so there it is. How beautiful. I'm so proud of this piece, honestly. The colors are exactly what I wanted them to turn out. Ah, pretty.